have a museum that reflects the contributions of Native Americans to this country, the Museum of the American Indian. We're going to soon break ground, finally, on a museum of African American history, which we should have. What we're missing is something that pays tribute to the Latinos in this country. And so this bill would create the commission that would simply explore the idea of moving forward with the idea of constructing a museum of the American Latino. We passed the bill out of the House this year unanimously. We can't get it out of the Senate once again. There are a couple of Republican senators who are objecting to the bill and are holding it up. And we need your help to unstick it, to get the senators that are putting holds on this legislation to let it go, because we know it'll get signed, and we need to get moving. And once we do that, we can change a few things. I'm tired. Did anybody see the documentary called The War?
Yes.
Great documentary, right? Did you notice that they had some footage on a couple of Latino veterans?
14 minutes.
Yeah, 14 minutes out of a 14-hour segment series. That was 14 minutes that was added.
Yeah.
It wasn't originally there. You might have been able to tell that that was inserted into the piece. Originally, Ken Burns, famous Ken Burns, produced this piece and had completely excluded any mention of Latinos in a documentary called simply The War. When many of us got wind of this, we couldn't believe it. Now, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, there was a movie made back in 1960 called From Hell to Eternity, or Eternity to Hell, excuse me, From Eternity to Hell. Jeffrey Hunter played the part of a young Italian American who went to Japan and, without having to fire too many bullets, not only captured several hundred Japanese soldiers, but also, of course, saved the lives of hundreds of American soldiers during the fight there in Japan. That character received, I think it was the Medal of Honor for his heroics. But he wasn't Italian American. He was Mexican American. His name was not whatever Italian name they gave him in the movie. It was a guy named Guy Gabaldon. But in those days, in 1960, Guy Gabaldon wasn't good enough to be portrayed in a movie about a heroic American soldier. So he was turned into an Italian. Anybody ever take a look at Tom Brokaw's famous book, The Greatest Generation? Have you ever flipped through the pages of that thick book? If you could find a mention anywhere in that book about the greatest generation, about any Latino, I'd love you to show it to me. Because in that generation that fought in World War II, that came back and created that middle class that drove our economy for so many generations, not a single mention of Latinos. Yet over 500,000 Latinos fought in World War II. So whether it was in a movie, in a book, or in a documentary, somehow we seem to escape attention of a lot of folks. And that's why I hope you'll consider helping us when it comes to passing this legislation to establish the Museum of the American Latino here in Washington, D.C., because we want folks to walk down that mall, and if they're Americans, to feel very, very proud of who we are and what we have done. Or if they're not from here and they're visitors from a foreign land, to know what Americans are and why we're so proud of our country and our accomplishments. But we can't stay content believing that the mall reflects what America has been if we don't fight to make sure that we're included as well. When those kids that we're all fighting for to get educated have a chance to visit DC, they should know that there's a museum that reflects all the contributions their parents and grandparents made, whether they had a BA or some scientific degree, or if they just got to the 6th grade the way my father did. They all made contributions. And so we have a lot to do. A lot to do. And the final thing I'll ask you to help us with is immigration reform.
Here.
You know this better than I do, because you probably face it every day when kids don't come to school, don't show up, or when you hear about local governments deciding to pass laws that would make it impossible for people to come out of the shadows. We need your help because insanity rules in the halls of Congress when it comes to immigration reform. And you know this as well as I do, but if we're going to change the atmosphere and change the dynamic here, we need people to speak up. It's not enough to say it to me. We got to say it to those who don't really believe the way we do, that all children should have a chance to learn. All children should have a chance to breathe the same air and go out into the public and not have to hide in the shadows. We need your help, because if we don't, we will see a lot of pain and suffering within our community occurring day in, day out, in every single place, every single neighborhood where you and I live. And so we need your help, because this fight we can win. The public is with us if they just scratch the surface of the debate and see the facts. But they don't bother to scratch the surface because people like Boo Dobbs and Rush Limbaugh talk about this, and they have invaded and have captured the moral ground on this. It's up to us to change that. So as you continue to enjoy DC and have a chance to talk about education, I hope you'll know that we're fighting on No Child Left Behind. We're fighting to make sure that kids are included, English learners, Latino children, to make sure that they graduate. We're fighting to make sure that we're acknowledged and remembered in our history books and in the places, the venues that we visit, to make sure that Americans feel proud of who they are and what we've contributed. And finally, we're fighting to make sure that the next generation that isn't yet a citizen, that isn't yet an adult, has that same opportunity that some of us have had, even though our parents had nothing of that. And so it's great to see you here. I hope you continue to come and know that while we do have to fight and win some of these battles, there is time to eat and drink and socialize and have a good time. So I'm going to stop there to make sure that if you have some party plans, I don't interrupt them any more than I already did by coming a little late. So I thank you for having come. We look forward to working with you, and we sincerely hope that you'll take on the challenge that has been made possible here by this forum that NALEO makes available to you, to not just to learn about the issues, but to get to meet your compatriots who are willing to work with you to fight the fight for the next generation of leaders that will make this country great. So thank you very much for